Hey kids, welcome to Unit 3, Lesson 1, 1D Arrays, exercise number 1. We have a investigate and modify lesson. This program contains a double array that stores the Netflix subscription fees for the standard plan. The fees are an array for the following countries. It looks like we have 10 countries. Down here, this is saying that this really goes with the activity guide that we're going to jump to here in a second. First, we're going to predict what the purpose is of this code. We have a double, some brackets, Netflix fees, curly cues, and a bunch of numbers. Don't forget your semicolon. The direction said that there is a double array that stored the Netflix subscription fees. So that's what I think this is. I think these are the fees for the countries, and they correspond to that list of countries we saw in the directions. We'll just put subscription fees for countries in the list. Using the space below, draw a visual representation of the 1D array in Java Lab. Include the index of each element. I think this is a good time to start defining a couple of terms. If you've taken CSP, you know what an array is. It's a list, and we use those all the time in our code. If you've never seen them before, this is just a way we store information. Think of a binder of books. Each binder might be for your social studies, your science, or your math class, but they're all organized in different spots. If your school's fortunate enough to have a library still, you might have seen that there, how the books are organized. I like to stick with the binder representation. Well, that's what I think of when I think of storing information. How do I make that? Well, I'm going to go over to Insert, and I'm going to Table, and this is going to be 10 long. I'm going to put one row for my data, another for my index. First, I need to copy these numbers over here. Hopefully, if you have a binder system, you also label it. Otherwise, when you go to find it, you have to look through all the pages. That's what an index is. It's just a label of the items that we have in this array. Remember, back to decimal, kids. Our base 10 system goes 0 through 9. There is no 10. 10 is just the rounding up from 0 to 1. That means when we start labeling in Java, we start at 0. And if I had a bunch of binders on my bookcase, this is how they'd be labeled. $7.11 is 0. And I can add another page here for the corresponding country. I believe the first was Brazil. They're in alphabetical order. Canada, France, India, Japan, Mexico, South Africa, Spain, United States. I believe the last is Venezuela. And now our label of our binder has the subscription amount and the country stored at it. And we can start stacking these up. And that's the power of an array. We organize our data into these nice little rows and columns. It's a lot like Excel, kids, if you remember that. What is the length of this array? Well, there is 10 elements here, right? Even though computers count 0 to 9, we still count like regular humans, right? Length of this is still going to be 10. What is the index of the last element? We created our index down here. The last element's 9. That means the 9 is our last element. What is the index of the fee for Canada? Canada is at position 1, or the second element in our array. They are 1. In a space below, write the code to declare a 1D array of double values and initialize the values to the average number of hours you watch Netflix each day of the week. I am not too big of a Netflix fan. If you've listened to these videos, you know I am definitely a Lower Decks fan. Give a shout out to the 3 other fans out there. So I don't watch much of Netflix, so my numbers are probably going to be pretty low, but think of what yours are as we go. Let's look at the anatomy of our arrays. There are 2 ways you can create them. The first is by setting up the length that we're going to have. Why would we use this? Let's say we know we're going to enter 10 names. We don't know the names yet. We can create an array with 10 positions and then populate them later. We do that by our data type, whether that's int, double, or string. Don't forget there's 2 braces. Whatever our method name is, equal new. Again, the data type we're going to insert into it. For this one, square brackets, and then the length we'd put in there, whatever number that is. We can also skip that step and create an array with the numbers already populated into it. And in that case, it's very similar. We still do the data type with our square brackets. We still put our array name, equal. We don't use new. Now we use our curly braces, whatever we want to put into it. Don't forget your semicolons on both of them. And that's how we create arrays. An empty or default one, or one with information inside of it with curly Q. With that in mind, kids, we are going to use the one with the curly Q brackets because we already have the information. We're not going to create a blank one. How do we write that again? The data type. Don't forget your square braces. Our array list name, and this is supposed to be our average Netflix. And that's going to equal whatever we're going to put into our array. Don't forget your curly Q and a semicolon. Let's make up some numbers here, kids. Maybe on Monday, we watch 1 hour. Tuesday, we got a lot of homework and nothing. Wednesday, we watch 2 hours. Thursday, we watch 1.5 hours. Friday, we watch half an hour. Saturday, we binge on 3. And then Sunday, maybe we do another 2 hours. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, that is our array. If we wanted to create a empty one for later and then populate it, ooh, kids, this should be lowercase. We would do the same double, same bracket, average Netflix. This would equal new. We'd do square braces again and a semicolon, and then the number of elements we want to eventually put in. There's 7 here, so we would do a 7. Unless again made it uppercase. And that's how we declare an empty one that we'd eventually populate with our hours. So again, kids, remember 2 ways to create an array. I think we're going to take this code over to our Java lab and test it. Let's go ahead and see. Let's take a look at this code real quick. We have our double Netflix fees array being created here. It has these curly queues storing a bunch of information. This looks like we're creating an object fees out of the Netflix class, and it's calling this Netflix fees array list. Then we're doing system.out.print. The number of Netflix fees is, and then we're calling this object we created fees, and then get data length. Let's go ahead and look at the Netflix class. We are creating a private double data. I just want you to notice here that there's these square brackets. This is how we create a private instance variable when we want to store an array. And we're definitely going to talk about this in further lessons. So for right now, that's all you really need to know. We're creating our constructor. It has one argument, and that has to be whatever data is. And data is just our private instance variable. And we're setting data equal to this data. Down here, we have our get method, and that's just returning data. And then we have this get data length method, which we saw here under my console, and that's returning the data length that we have. So whatever the length of data is, it's going to return that length. So anytime we call get data length, it's going to return the data, which is going to be the parameter that my Netflix object is going to take, which is going to be an array list. And over here, you can see when we instantiate our object fees, it is just called Netflix fees. That is going to be substituted for data. And that's how we're going to get the length of the array here. And that's how we're going to get the length anytime we call that method in any object we're instantiating under the Netflix class. Looks like we have some directions down here what to do. Declare and initialize a double array for the average number of hours you watch for Netflix each day of the week. We're going to instantiate a new Netflix object with the array and print the length of the array. And if we hit run, a lot of this has already been done, so we're just really copying it. Up here, it looks like it's getting the length of the fees from this array. And then down here, it looks like it's printing off number of hours of Netflix, and it's getting the length 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and printing it off there. That's a pretty big clue of what we got to do here, kids. This is going to be our Netflix. Let's give ourselves a little room here so we can still see. And again, we're really just copying and pasting this line of code in here. And that is going to be a double square brackets. And we called ours average Netflix. And that is equal to, let's go ahead and just get our values over here, copy and paste them in, Control C. Don't forget your semicolon before we do this, and then paste. And those are our values. Now we have to instantiate a new object and then print the length. We've instantiated objects before. It's from the Netflix class. These are going to be the average hours, and that's going to be a new Netflix. And it looks like it's calling our name of our array here. We're going to do average Netflix. And don't forget your semicolon. Now we have to print it off. We're going to do a system.out.println. And it's going to say number of hours I watch Netflix is, and then we're going to concatenate. And now we're not calling the hours object. We are calling our object average hours. And we are going to this get data length. Don't forget your parentheses afterwards and your semicolon. This get data length is a pre-written method for us. And what that does is returns the length of any array that we call. That means if we're calling average hours dot get data length, this will print off our length, which should also be 7. When I hit run here, that means I should get a new little line that says number of hours I watch for Netflix is. And kids, I haven't averaged this out, so we're going to find out together what our made up numbers are. Let's hit run and see. We're not getting the average. Silly me, we didn't do any math. We did the length of our array. So we should put the length of our array is, now when we hit run, now the length of our array is 7. And that's because we have 7 different elements in our object. There's a lot of key takeaways from this lesson. Kids, first is understanding what an array is. And an array is a list that we're storing. And these elements always start at the index 0. Whenever we create an array, we can't change it from its initial. That means if it has 5 elements, it can always only have 5 elements. That goes along with the data type. If it's created as a string, it can never store ints or doubles. That is called immutable. We also learned how to write these arrays. If we just want to declare an empty list, we do the data type by square brackets, our array name, equal, new, square brackets, however long we want our list, and a semicolon. Again, remember, humans, we count 1 through 10. That's the elements in a list. Arrays start at 0 and go to 9, because that's how the decimal system works, 0 to 9. The other way, we did the data type that we want, square brackets, still our array list name, equal, and then curly braces, and then however many elements we want in it. Don't forget your semicolon. And finally, kids, remember on our FRQs, we have 4 questions, one of them being a one-dimensional array. So the rest of this lesson is really going to dive into what this one-dimensional array is, how do we use it, and the benefit for it in Java. Hopefully, kids, this video helped you understand a little bit about what a 1D array is. As always, if you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. See you later, kids. Bye.